So welcome back. We're doing the third segment of training on First Video and the Verilocal system for grassroots news. In this segment, we're going to be going through a number of issues. Some of them are involving settings, settings you should know to make sure that you don't have any unfortunate recording glitches, for example. Another one will be an important tip on using the fade tool for video, and also some memory management. Then we'll be getting into how to post to the actual site. So the first thing I wanted to go through was the fade tool that we were using in the last segment. So I'm just going to open a project here. Now, one of the tools we built in, as we mentioned before, was the ability to create a fade up or a fade down in video. In other words, fade to black, also called a transition. So one of the things that happened when we developed this was that within the iOS, Apple would only allow us to do certain things. And so there is a sort of Apple-created glitch in the fade program, and I'm going to show you that. I'm going to introduce a clip. And in this case, I'm going to highlight the entire clip. I'm bringing in the whole clip. I'll drag it in. And I'm going to put in a fade at the beginning. So again, I do my two-finger tap, and I'm going to go Clip FX, transition in, linear fade, and do a duration, I'll do a long one, of 4 seconds. So that's done. Now, when you go back here, if you look at the screen, you'll see on that clip, there's no fade. The reason for this is because the way the iOS was written didn't allow us to put in a fade from the beginning of a clip. So if you have the entire clip, you will not be able to put in a fade at the beginning or at the end without moving that little silver tab. So the workaround we did was you can put in the fade and then you pull this, and as you can see, the fade appears. Now, if you've already cut the clip, in other words, you don't have it from the beginning, you have a segment of the clip from, say, the middle of your video, then this glitch will not appear. But if you took it right from the beginning or right to the end, then you have to do that little step to make the fade appear. So that's what we call the irritating fade glitch. Now there's a few things in settings that I wanted to go through. Let me see here. I might actually bring up the Vericorder First Video Net. So this is the iPhone version here. And as you can see, there's a number of different settings here. One of them is the airplane mode warning. That basically means that every time you open the app, you're going to get a reminder to go into airplane mode before recording. And the reason you do that is because when a cell phone is operating, it's constantly looking for a cellular signal, and it's also looking for a Wi-Fi signal. And when it does that, it makes a clicking noise. Cell phones really are just radios, and they're sending out a radio frequency known as RF noise, radio frequency noise, that will appear on your recording. You probably won't hear it with the human ear, but you will hear it on your recording, and usually it shows up as a loud ticking sound. So it's very important to go into airplane mode. The other reason, of course, is you don't want a phone call in the middle of your interview. Below that, you have multi-track video projects. That's actually about to change. We're going to take that option out. But if you want 2 tracks of video for editing, you have to turn that on. If you don't, you'll have 1 track of video. And finally, you have activate an account. To do that, of course, I'm going to have to get out of airplane mode. Let me see here. So there's 2 sets of settings. There's the settings within the app, and then there's settings outside the app. So some of the settings you want are, first of all, airplane mode when you're recording should be on. Right now I'm just going to turn it off because I'm not recording. I'm going to go back to the app. And when you actually connect as a new reporter to Grassroots News, there's basically an activation process. Now I've deactivated my account right now, and now I'm going to activate it again. Everybody will get a subscription code that they can type in, and then they can create their own user ID. We don't much care what it is, but it's just an ID that they can be tracked by later. We hit activate. Now, if I had a SIM card in here, or if I had my Wi-Fi on, essentially I would be on the system, but that's as simple as it gets. Really, once you get on here, you activate, and then you connect to MIMS, and then you'll be up. So that's the other thing in settings. One note about memory management. The iOS now runs all of its apps in the background unless they're completely turned off. And I still run into a lot of people who think, well, I closed the app, therefore it's no longer using memory. Well, actually a lot of those apps are constantly using memory. So anything that has a process going on will use more memory. When you're video editing takes a lot of memory by itself. So First Video Net is really pushing the limit of what a mobile device can do. You just don't have the memory you have on a computer. So what happens when you have this many apps on, as you can see in the bottom, is it starts draining your memory. So the way to do that, to deal with that, is when you start editing, or if maybe you've had a crash during editing, you double click on the button. This would be the main button on the front of the physical button on the front of the iPad or iPhone. And that will bring up all of the apps that you have running in the background. You then just have to hold down any one of those apps until it starts to make that sort of wiggling motion, and then you can just go through and close them all. So we often have people calling us up and saying, oh, well, my app keeps crashing. And then when we take a look at their phone, we find out that they have, 35 applications running in the background. Well, obviously that's going to crash your app. So always a good idea to, regularly, not even when you're editing, but just regularly turn off apps. You can see I've been a bad person. I haven't done that. But nobody's perfect. So that's memory management. One thing too about memory management is within a project, when you're working on a project, we talked about this a little bit before, but being deliberate in your actions is a good idea. Every time you touch the screen, you're sending a signal to the operating system. So if you're kind of stabbing away at the screen many times, you're sending a lot of contradictory signals. You'll see the same thing on a computer. You'll see people who get tired of waiting for something to appear. They'll start clicking on the button repeatedly. They actually are sending multiple signals to the operating system on a computer or an iPad or an iPhone, and often that will overload the system. In this case, it's actually overloading the RAM. And again, your app will crash. So being sort of deliberate about your movements and your gestures is another good way to not crash your app. If you do crash your app, it will automatically resume where it left off. You won't lose your work, but it is annoying. So the next thing we're going to cover is actually posting to the site. So what I've done is I've got an iPhone version of the same application that I put onto my iPad, and we'll go through some of the posting process. As you can see, we're at the File Manager window, but I'm going to quickly show you something else in Settings with that top button. You'll see that I have this MIMS Manager here, which I'd shown you just a moment ago, and there's a MIMS Update button. So every once in a while, if somebody gives you a new target, all you have to do is hit that button. New targets will appear. But you can also, in here, see which targets you have. So this is sort of a running guide of any targets that you have on your system. And what I did over the break is add a new target on a new website to my phone. So that allows me to post automatically from here, and in this particular case, the stories will go and post automatically onto the website. So to do that, let's just imagine that you've finished your story, you've done your edit, and now all you have to do is send it. So I might take a piece like this. I get a send button. There's a number of options here, but I just hit send, and I can go through all my choices, but the one I want to send it to is here. Now, this is where I can put in a title. And in here I can put my body copy. So I could either write my story in here, and usually what I use is a Bluetooth keyboard and I just write it in. Or if I have already written it into the project window, which I don't think I did in this case, oh actually I did put something in there, it will automatically just paste it right into the page. So, so basically that's all I have to do. The only other thing I have to do is hit submit. And you'll see this little bar coming across. So the first thing that this application will do is it will rebuild the file. In other words, it's going to change the file into whatever bit rate and whatever size the website requires. So you'll see that. And then in the background, it's actually going to send with a process that we call Verisend. So right now, it's sending to the website. And in about 5 minutes, it will actually post to the website, create a headline, put the story onto the website. It will create a thumbnail photo and put that on the website as well. And then when you click on the thumbnail, it will play the video. So I'm done. So it's going to go to an online server-based transcoding system. It will transcode there, and then it's going to create about 5 or 6 different versions of the video, and then post it. So if we went there in about 5 minutes, we'd be able to see this video. And that's as hard as it gets. We just post it. You're done. So pretty simple. One thing that you can find, something about the background tasks, which is kind of interesting. If you had a number of things loading up at the same time, you can actually change the order in which you're sending them. Oh, sorry. I'm going to have to get a more secure plug in there. This should come up in a second. So you can actually change the order in which things are sent. So this is valuable when you're in a case where you might be sending raw video. So the first thing you do is you get to a scene and you say, your editor is saying, look, just send us video. Send it right now. Send us whatever you have. So you start sending maybe 5 minutes of video, which is going to take a while, especially on 3G. Now, in the meantime, while that's sending, you may edit your story and get it down to 55 seconds to a minute. That's going to get there a lot faster. So you can send your raw video and then change the order of the transfer simply by dragging the order. So you can actually send your short minute of video before the other one arrives. So to do that, I'm just going to go back. So let's take something longer, like this one here. And we're going to go send here. We'll just create a little false text. We're going to submit. And as soon as it goes green, we can send our next one. And hopefully it doesn't send so fast, because sometimes it sends so quickly I don't have time to send another one. All right, I'm going to close that, and then I'm going to take something very short. I'm going to send that, do the same thing, submit. I'm now going to go into this button here. It says tasks at the bottom, and all I have to do is drag that up there. This one will pause, the short story will go, and then when that one finishes, the second story will go. So you can actually send and schedule, several things. If you wanted to send 7 different pieces of video, you can send them all. You can also prioritize them very, very quickly. Now, not that important if you have good Wi-Fi, but very important if you're in a 3G network or very low broadband area, and it's taking you, say, could take you an hour to send a longer piece of video. Well, in the meantime, your guys are saying we need 30 seconds, 20 seconds of video on the site right now. That's how you do it. Great way to send lots of little clips too. So that's the background tasks. If I want to then get rid of these, I don't need to keep track of them anymore. I just hit clear uploads, and that's done. Now, a couple of other sending things. This is how you send to the network. When we say sending to the network, we always talk about, at Vericorder, we talk about targets. And a target is a destination. So in other words, it's going to your website, and it's also a integration. So on your website, you might have a high-def version that's going on to, when people go to your site on a computer, they'll see the high-def version. But when they go on their mobile phone, they'll see a lower resolution version that will load faster on their phone. So we actually send multiple versions of the same video into your site. So in addition to that, you have a few other options as well. So again, I'm going to send. And the options you have depends on what Grassroots News decides that they want. So for example, in my case, you can see that I can send to YouTube, for example. I can also send to an open FTP, so they may just want you to send it into an FTP folder where they can pull it out and do whatever they want, maybe re-edit, for example. You can also send to your camera roll. So sending to your camera roll is a good backup plan. For example, if you have something like a mobile me account, for example, pulling it to your camera roll will allow you to upload to your mobile me account and share it with other people. So there's lots of different options you can do in sending material, but those are some of the basic ones. And as you can see, that's already gone. One of the important things is the sharing function. So most of the time you're going to be sending to your website, but other times you may come back with material and decide to import it into your computer and edit on your computer. And that's where the sharing function comes in. So essentially what we're doing is we're creating a Wi-Fi link between two devices. And that might be actually an iPhone and an iPad, might be an iOS device and your computer. But basically, once I start this server, all of you in this room can now download any file you want from my iPad. So I'm just going to take one step back. I may not want all of you to download from my iPad, so I can also put authentication in. So if you're in a field situation where maybe one of you has taken some video and needs to go back and do some filming, but the other person has to edit and then file the story, the way you deal with that is you start the sharing function. So in that case, you would want to have a password. So I would just put in a name, username Gary, and password Symons. And actually, if you want, you can log on. I'm going to start the server. And if you want, you can simply go in and start in your app on the file manager window. Just press at the bottom, sharing. You'll see a little button that says sharing at the bottom. We'll run through this again from the other end. I take it you're all on the Wi-Fi? Okay. So you should now be able to see my device. And if you put in the password protocol I had, Gary and Symons, then you should be able to access all of my different files and then just download them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back one step, and if I could ask you to go to your file manager and then start sharing. Don't put a password in or anything. Just let me know when you're done. Okay. So I'm going to start the browser, and as you can see, it now says Jeff's iPhone 4. So to share files, all I need to do is press on that, and I'm going to see any files that he has on my device. I press that, and I download the movie directly into my device. The only difference between this and a computer is on a computer you do it through a browser. So if you're on a browser, I always recommend using Safari. Even if you use a PC, download Safari and use Safari, because Safari has a Bonjour. If you don't use Bonjour, what you have to do is you have to type in the URL, the IP address basically, into the URL bar, and then you can download. But if you have Bonjour, all you have to do is click the Bonjour button in Safari, and it will show you the name of my device. So if it's Gary's iPhone, it will show you Gary's iPhone. You can click on it, and then you can download everything to your computer. So that's basically how you share into the computer. So we've gone through quite a few of the different aspects of editing, but I did want to show you one that you probably haven't used yet, which has to do with creating a slideshow. Slideshows are really easy, fast ways to create stories, and they're ideal for situations where you have to do something in literally 5 minutes. So I'm going to do something very, very fast here. So this is how you create a slideshow with this program. For people that don't do a lot of video editing, this is a lot faster, it's a lot easier, and it's actually a great way to tell a story. I actually use them quite a bit. So I'm going to do a new project, but instead of pressing video, I'm going to press the button that says Showcase. Sure. I'll just call it Project Z. Now, the difference between this, again, I usually start out with audio. And this is one that often radio reporters really prefer. So they'll do a radio story, and then basically we'll put photos on top of it. So I'll just do that really quickly. I'll add a bit of audio. So I'll take 39 seconds. Roughly like that. Well, maybe about 30 seconds, about like that. Drop that down. So we'll say, for example, that's sort of my radio story that I've done. So all I do, I've already highlighted it, as you can see. I'll zoom to fit so you can see all of it. And then I tap the one above, which is the one where the pictures are actually dropped. So all I have to do now is go on and add pictures. So usually, on average, I put about pictures every 3 seconds to 5 seconds. More or less doesn't really work too well. So in this case, I'm going to put on about 10 pictures. Done. I can now change the order. So for example, I might want this one first. And as you can see, the pictures perfectly fit with the audio. And so I'm actually done. I can just hit save, send, goes to the website, my story is complete. The nice thing about this is that if you are in a hurry, doing a slideshow is much, much faster. Sometimes it has more impact because sometimes still images are more powerful than video images, and this is just a fantastic way to tell a story. So to go through this and just play it, I'll do that in 1 second, but the other thing you can do is you can still change the order, or you can change the amount of time that a particular thing appears. Or I can add something at a particular location, you know. Usually what I would do is I'd go to the end, add a picture there. Let's say it's my interview picture. I'm interviewing these people. I'll go in here and I'll drag that to where I want it. Hit done. And as you can see, I now have them over the interview. So really, after that, it's as simple as saying, you know, save and send it. Now, I'll just do that right now. And that's the end of my project. So it is a really good storytelling technique. I use it quite a bit. So when we pick up later, we'll start to get into more of the administration back end and what happens after you've actually sent your stories in. And on the break, if you have any questions, just let me know and we'll go through anything that you missed.